everything changes, literally, in a matter of seconds. I mean, think about it. You spend months building a roster. You spend weeks scheming in these dark, quiet rooms, surrounded by nothing but the hum of server racks and the glow of film room projectors. You visualize lifting that trophy at the end of the year. But out there, out on those sweltering 100-degree practice fields in Dallas, the sheer fragility of an entire NFL season gets exposed in the brutal light of day. We are looking at a situation right now where millions upon millions of dollars, the absolute legacy of a coaching staff, and the fate of a globally watched franchise hang entirely on a single practice rep. It's wild. The weight of these expectations is just crushing. A front office job can literally be lost over one single misstep in June. So welcome to a microscopic look at the absolute razor's edge of professional football. I want you to feel the immediate, suffocating tension radiating from this statement. Because look, this isn't a medical professional speaking. This isn't some cautious strength and conditioning coach giving an update. This is the franchise quarterback. This is Dak Prescott. And listen to what he is warning us about right before the start of mandatory minicamp. He says they don't want him to do too much and then suddenly suffer a setback or some type of injury. Now, if you know the deeply entrenched hierarchy of the National Football League, you know that a quarterback publicly commenting on the medical and coaching management of another player is a massive red flag. It's a total disruption of the normal power dynamics. When the guy who throws the passes is already publicly terrified of his star receiver pushing too hard in June, well, you know exactly how high the stakes have become behind the closed doors of that facility. The air in that building is just thick with paranoia. Now, before we dive into the chilling realities of this off-season standoff and the totally unprecedented psychological overhaul happening inside Dallas, welcome to NFL Nexus. Look, we don't just blindly report the news here. We dissect the anatomy of the league down to the absolute smallest details. So if you want to understand the intricate, high-stakes chess match of professional football, you really need to subscribe to the channel right now. Go ahead and like this explainer so we can push this analysis out to other true fans and comment below with your thoughts as we start peeling back these layers. And hey, to truly support the cinematic deep dives we do here, become a channel member today. Your support is what builds this nexus. All right, let's step back inside the tension. All right, let's get into section 1, the multi-million-dollar question. So we transition now into the intense standoff that is defining this entire offseason. The front office in Dallas is operating under an immense, crushing pressure. They're staring down a situation where logic and physical reality are just violently colliding with their financial obligations. This right here is the multi-million-dollar question that keeps general managers awake at 3 in the morning. $27.3 million. I want the sheer gravity of that guarantee number to really sink in for a second. That is the colossal weight of the franchise tag tender signed by star wide receiver George Pickens. And we need to be crystal clear on the financial minutia here. That is not a multi-year deal with built-in protections or injury clauses or prorated signing bonuses spread out over half a decade to magically manipulate the salary cap. No, that is a massive, immediate, fully guaranteed financial anchor tied to one single season. And even more importantly, it's tied to the physical integrity of one man's lower body. When you have $27.3 million locked into a player who already missed the recent voluntary OTAs, well, every single time his cleats violently hit the turf, the entire front office holds its breath. Because they know if that knee or that ankle gives out, that money instantly transforms into dead cap space, financially paralyzing the entire team. The agonizing tightrope they are forced to walk right now is truly terrifying. Because on one side, you've got this immediate, desperate need for system implementation, right? You need your dynamic playmaker, the guy who basically kept your passing game lethal when CeeDee Lamb was absent, to integrate with Dak Prescott. You need those thousands of micro repetitions. You absolutely need that unspoken timing. But on the exact opposite side of that tightrope is the catastrophic risk of a soft tissue injury. And we've got to understand the true anatomy of what is actually at stake here. Soft tissue injuries, the hamstrings, the groins, the calves, they are the silent assassins of an NFL season. They are not like broken bones that just heal cleanly on an x-ray. A microscopic tear in a hamstring fiber in June, brought on by lactic acid buildup and a lack of proper off-season conditioning, doesn't just magically go away. It lingers. It hides behind layers of adrenaline during practice. And then, when that receiver plants his foot to make a hard cut in September, that micro tear ruptures entirely. Rushing an elite playmaker back into full-speed drills just to justify a $27 million price tag, that is exactly how you ruin a season before August even begins. Which brings us to Section 2, protecting the investment. So this leads into the overarching theme of this entire operation in Dallas right now, which is avoiding setbacks at absolutely all costs. And this is rooted in a deep underlying paranoia of a training camp disaster. Think about it. If a player pulls a hamstring in June trying to prove a point, he enters training camp in late July compromised. If he's compromised in August, he's totally ineffective in September. The domino effect is terrifying, and that is exactly why Dak Prescott felt the absolute need to stand in front of the local media and say, even if he's there next week, don't expect him to be doing a ton. Honestly, this is brilliant air cover. In the Dallas media market, where you've got 50 voice recorders shoved in your face after every single practice, one quote alters the entire news cycle for a week. By proactively dropping this quote, the quarterback is deliberately and intentionally lowering the expectations. He's telling the aggressive media, the fans, and even the coaching staff to just back off. Do not push this man. We need his explosive speed for a treacherous regular season, not for a totally meaningless victory in a June 7-on-7 drill. But here is the really chilling, unspoken truth, which was confirmed quietly behind closed doors by offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer. Pickens hasn't explicitly communicated his plans to show up. I mean, the team fully expects him there. They are aggressively projecting confidence to the public, but that optimism, it's not based on confirmed intelligence or signed paperwork. Not at all. It is based on pure, desperate hope. They're flying entirely blind with a $27 million asset, desperately hoping he just walks through the facility doors, while they're simultaneously drafting detailed contingency plans to stop him from actually playing full-speed football when he finally does. It is literally the ultimate paradox of modern NFL management. Moving on to Section 3, expanding the blueprint. Now we need to shift our camera away from the players and the financial standoffs for a minute. We need to look up into the coaching meeting rooms. Because while the roster is navigating all this financial tension, the coaching staff is undergoing a radical, almost desperate evolution. We are watching a 2-decade NFL veteran urgently reinvent his entire philosophy to save this team. Brian Schottenheimer is expanding his blueprint in a way that is just almost unheard of for a coach carrying his specific burdens. I mean, he's the offensive play caller. That alone is an exhausting 80-hour-a-week job involving hundreds of complex route concepts and protection schemes. And yet, his focus is aggressively expanding. He's no longer just barricaded in the offensive film room. He is physically invading the defensive meeting rooms. He's stepping into the special teams meetings. He is taking his deep, granular understanding of offensive spacing and leverage, and he's using it to fix defensive gap integrity. He's literally lending his voice, his authority, and his critical eye to all 3 phases of the game. So what is the catalyst for this totally unprecedented expansion of his duties? Well, it's pure necessity born from sheer embarrassment. Let's be real. Last season, they fielded the 6th worst special teams unit in the entire National Football League. Their defense was statistically one of the absolute worst, functioning as a complete sieve against the run. And because of that catastrophic failure, they're being forced into a massive, foundational overhaul, diving back into the extreme complexities of a 3-4 defensive scheme. And we really have to understand how difficult this is. Transitioning to a 3-4 means you need a true zero-technique nose tackle who can just eat double teams all day. And you need edge-setting outside linebackers who can cleanly drop into coverage. Learning a completely new defensive language in a single offseason is literally like trying to rebuild an airplane engine while you are currently falling out of the sky. Schottenheimer can't simply trust the process anymore. He has to oversee the demolition and the rebuild himself. Which brings us to Section 4. The psychology of trust. Look, rebuilding a scheme is really just X's and O's drawn in dry erase marker on a whiteboard. But to rebuild a shattered defense and a fractured special teams unit, you have to rebuild the actual men executing the plays. And this brings us to the dramatic, psychological warfare Schottenheimer is utilizing to rebuild this roster's foundation. It's not just about practice schedules anymore, it's about mandatory dinners. It's about stripping away the armor and utilizing brutal, uncomfortable honesty. He said, we'd sit down and talk about things outside of football, anything messy in their world that they need help with. That's what gives you the ability to have them trust you. He is purposefully diving into the absolute chaos of their personal lives, the messy worlds. We're talking about 22-year-old millionaires dealing with financial advisors stealing their money, extended family members constantly asking for handouts, and the suffocating toxicity of social media criticism. He knows that if you want to earn the right to scream at a player for blowing a critical coverage on a crucial 3rd down in a frozen December game, you must first earn that sacred right by sitting with them in their personal, messy reality in June. There is a very precise, calculated psychological sequence at play here. This is exactly how an old-school coach adapts to the modern, high-strung NFL athlete. It's a process. Step 1. Build the relationship completely outside the geometry of football. We're talking high-end steakhouses. We're talking closed-door, private chats where the playbook isn't even mentioned once.
Step 2, directly address the off-field chaos. You have to fix the man and stabilize his mind before you can fix the player. Step 3, because you executed steps 1 and 2 with genuine empathy, you have now earned the right to have the ruthlessly hard conversations. You earn the right to turn on that film projector and tell them exactly what they do not want to hear about their lazy footwork or their totally poor hand placement. And finally, step 4, that emotional buy-in, that profound, unshakable trust, that translates directly into a player violently throwing his body into a congested gap on a 4th and 1. That is what produces real, tangible, on-field results.
And that leads perfectly into Section 5, the world is watching. Because those on-field results matter more here in Dallas than almost anywhere else on Earth. We've got to zoom out now. We have to pull the camera way back from the granular, private, messy details of the locker room and really comprehend the overwhelming, terrifying, global scale of the Dallas franchise. Everything that happens inside that facility is magnified by millions. They don't just play in a local television market. They play on a worldwide stage. Just consider the massive chronological gap or this team's cultural impact. Picture this. A single isolated passing play happens in the middle of October 2025 during a Week 7 divisional matchup against the Commanders. Now, fast forward 8 entire months. It's June 2026. The stadium has literally been physically transformed. It's no longer AT&T Stadium. It's been rebranded as Dallas Stadium for the FIFA World Cup. And yet, the ghost of that October football game is somehow echoing around the entire planet during a global soccer broadcast.
I mean, you truly cannot make this up. During an incredibly tense group stage match between Japan and the Netherlands, a beautifully curved soccer pass is played perfectly into the penalty box, and Fox commentator Darren Fletcher, who is calling a global FIFA event to an audience of tens of millions of people, says this: "That might be the best pass they've seen in this stadium since Dak Prescott threw a 74-yarder to CeeDee Lamb against the Washington Commanders in Week 7. Think about the sheer, surreal absurdity of that moment. A soccer commentator, speaking to a worldwide audience spanning dozens of countries, instinctively compares a brilliant World Cup moment directly to a Dallas Cowboys touchdown. That is the permanent, undeniable real estate this single football team holds in the global consciousness." And the moment didn't even stop there. Color commentator Owen Hargreaves immediately chimes in on that exact same broadcast and adds, "Tom Brady would have been proud of it." He literally brings the ultimate NFL icon, his Fox colleague Tom Brady, who actually sat in that very booth and called that exact Week 7 game months prior, into the global mix. You've got the NFL's greatest player, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, and a highly competitive Japan versus Netherlands World Cup match, all violently colliding in one single broadcast moment. As a fan, this is exactly why the pressure you feel in your living room on Sundays is magnified 1,000 times over inside that building. The world is constantly watching, and the standard they are held to is impossibly, suffocatingly high. And what exactly was the standard they established on that specific day? Let's methodically detail the box score metrics from that October afternoon, because honestly, it paints a picture of absolute perfection. It was a 44-point masterclass against a bitter divisional rival. Dak Prescott was out there operating with surgical precision, reading the defense pre-snap and carving them up for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. You had CeeDee Lamb running absolutely unguardable seam routes, pulling down 110 yards and a score. And the ground game? It was an absolute force of sheer violence. Javonte Williams planting his foot in the turf, exploding through the A-gap, and racking up 116 rushing yards and a touchdown. That performance proved exactly why the front office gave him a massive, lucrative contract extension this offseason. 44 total points. Absolute, unquestioned offensive dominance. That right there is the perfect, terrifying standard. That box score is exactly what Brian Schottenheimer is desperately trying to replicate, while he is simultaneously overhauling the absolute worst defense in the league, while he's simultaneously managing the fragile off-field psychology of his players, and while he is simultaneously waiting to see if his $27 million receiver will even step onto the practice field. Which brings us right back to the sweltering heat of the Dallas minicamp. The pieces are all set on the board. The financial stakes are astronomical. The coaches are stretched to their absolute psychological and physical limits. The entire world, quite literally, is watching and waiting. So we leave you with this question. When $27 million is hanging by a single hamstring fiber, when a coach is frantically managing the chaotic, messy lives of 53 different men, what happens when the pressure finally breaks? We'll definitely be watching. Make sure you are subscribed to NFL Nexus, drop a like, and become a channel member so you don't miss a single second of the fallout when this powder keg finally ignites.